Good afternoon to all from the editorial board of BuildUp portal. For the ones who are attending a BuildUp webinar for the first time, welcome. For our returning audience, thank you for renovating your interest. Just a brief explanation of what is BuildUp. BuildUp is a collaborative platform in the field of energy efficiency in buildings. It is continuously updated and it represents one of the key sources of information on the topic of energy efficiency. You can register and become a member of the community. You can also upload news, events, present case studies, results from projects, and so on. I would like to invite you all to navigate the portal. In the Learn section, you will find all the podcasts of the past webinars, so it is possible to listen to all the previous presentations. At the end of this webinar, the link to the recording and the PDF presentation will be made available in this section of the portal. It is a pleasure to host today's webinar entitled Innovation Actions Reinforcing and Complementing the Current Building Energy Performance Schemes. I would like to invite you all to contribute and participate in this webinar. You can ask questions by typing in the box on the right side of the screen. All questions will be answered at the end of the presentations and after the panel discussion. However, feel free to type your questions anytime from now on. Now I would like to present the agenda of today's webinar and introduce the speakers. First, Adrian Joyce, Secretary General at EuroACE, the European Alliance of Companies for Energy Efficiency in Buildings, will give a keynote speech on EPCs and the renovation wave. Then there will be a panel discussion moderated by Eva Brardinelli, Policy and Communication Officer at EuroACE. Panelists are Maria Fernandez Boneta, representing ePanacea team, Smart European Energy Performance Assessment and Certification. Apostolos Tsolakis, representing D2 EPC team, Dynamic Digital EPCs for Enhanced Quality and User Awareness. Rofaida Larech, representing EPC Recast team, Energy Performance Certificate Recast. And Michal Pomianowski, representing EDICE team, Energy Flexible Dynamic Building Certification. Now, I would like to leave the floor to Adrian Joyce, and please, we can start the session.
Thank you so much, Julia, and it's a real pleasure to be here today to set the tone for this webinar. I hope and trust that what I have to say is both of interest and can be stimulating for the panel debate to come. And I hope that we will learn all together as the portal wishes us to do about this important topic. I wanted to really start by saying that for me, I consider that the timing of today's session is really excellent, and I'll return to this later, because we are right in the middle of the public consultation on the revisions for the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which is where we find the origins of the Energy Performance Certificate. So before I come to discuss the role of the certificate in making a success of the renovation wave, I wanted to recall for the audience that the origins of energy performance certificates already goes back nearly 20 years. It's a tool that was first introduced in the first version of the directive back in 2002. And at that time, the expected impacts of introducing such an instrument were that it would deliver accurate information on energy use of the building stock across Europe. The idea here was to ensure that through a visit to a site, to a building, to an assessment of the physical characteristics of the building, the use pattern of the building, that we could develop an accurate idea of the energy use of the building in order to inform how best to use energy in buildings to achieve comfort, livability, and the other things that we all look for from our buildings. I remember well at the time it was promoted as a market instrument that was expected to influence purchase decisions in the market. And it's for this reason I believe the Commission at the time decided it was wise to require this to be a piece of information, a tool, a certificate that would be delivered to all people when they bought or rented a property. And I want to come back to that as actually a weakness in the system, at least in my opinion. And through this instrument, the intention was to build up knowledge of the qualities of our building stock in Europe, to then subsequently inform further policy developments as time went by. And we have seen that as time has gone by, we're now in our fourth revision, effectively, of the directive, because there have already been 2 revisions. And now we'll see a 4th version of it emerging from this 3rd revision that's mooted, with the document proposal from the Commission to be published at the end of this year. But look, we've got 20 years of experience with this tool. And what has the reality been over all of these years? Well, I'm afraid I would have a rather negative assessment in terms of what the expectations were at the time. So what has happened? With the way that the Energy Performance Certificate was designed and introduced in EU legislation, it allowed a great deal of flexibility to member states to define how the certificate's methodology, what the criteria would be behind it, what the format of the certificate would be. And this has made it very difficult to compare energy performance across national borders, actually even within some countries between regions. If I'm right, there are about 57 methodologies that are used across the EU as a whole. As a result, we've seen, unfortunately, poor implementation and poor uptake, because at the very outset, many member states were reluctant and slow to introduce the Energy Performance Certificate as an instrument in the market. And many countries really only introduced their systems after the first revision of the directive in 2010, 2012. So already 10 years had been lost. And because of what I said earlier, there's been low market penetration. We're still at a stage, and I hope maybe one of the projects could answer this question for us. I think the penetration in Europe is as low as no more than 30% of buildings have been assigned an energy performance certificate in the 20 years. Now, as always in Europe, that's a patchy and diverse picture, because some countries have a very high percentage of their buildings covered by energy performance certificates, and many others a very low percentage. And then a final comment to this slide on origins and impacts to date. The reality has been that the quality of information delivered has sometimes been lacking. And because of a desire in many countries to keep the cost to the consumer down, shortcuts have been taken. And very frequently, to date, EPCs, which must have recommendations on improving the energy performance of the building, have only included standardized information that's not tailored to the building itself. So I'm afraid I start by having a rather negative assessment of the origins and the impact to date of energy performance certificates across Europe. So what's the potential? What can we look forward to? And that's what I prefer to do in my daily work, is to look forward and propose solutions for where we see weaknesses. So what is the potential moving forward? Well, we know already that a good energy performance certificates scheme can be linked to the financing of works to buildings. What do I mean here? What I mean is, by undertaking a rating exercise through a visit to a site before works start, and then undertaking the same exercise after works are finished, you can have a reliable assessment of how good the works were and how much energy has been saved. Once you have that kind of guarantee of savings, it gives more confidence to financiers to give loans and give good conditions for those loans to the building owners. So linking EPC ratings that are reliable, that are well executed to a good methodology, can build confidence among financiers to allow more money to flow towards renovation works in buildings. The second thing that EPCs are already a starter for are what we call building renovation passports. Now, these passports are a description of the building and its characteristics. They contain, crucially, a roadmap for what the potential energy savings in the building are over time, and how the building owner can get there, either in one go or in a series of planned steps. But you cannot have a good building renovation passport without a good assessment of the building in the first case. And that's where a good EPC methodology comes in, because it can assess the qualities of the building, the performance of the building, the comfort levels of the building, and inject those into the building renovation passport and its roadmap. We think it can also be linked to what's known as the Smart Readiness Indicator, which is a voluntary instrument that was introduced in 2018 into the Buildings Directive, and that assesses the building's capacity to be more digital, to have more automated controls, to be more linked to the energy system. In fact, to activate the building as an active contributor to energy system stability and capacity. And why not have a broader instrument extend the scope of the EPC to include the Smart Readiness Indicator? And finally, in this little section, digital building logbooks are now being spoken about, which actually go beyond all I've spoken about, to capture as well the planning restrictions that would apply to a site, that capture the rights of way around a building, that take into account all the characteristics that a building and a building owner has to account for if they want to undertake works, particularly extensions to their buildings moving forward. And in fact, at EuroACE, we would be an advocate for having digital building logbooks, which is a digital place for each building that contains all the information from the energy performance certificate, from the building renovation passport and its roadmap and its Smart Readiness Indicator, so that there's a one place to go to for all the information related to the building, obviously with chapters. So there are other issues not included in the slide that we feel we could link EPCs to, and they include the idea that minimum energy performance standards should be introduced to further encourage and incentivize energy renovation of buildings. Those minimum energy performance standards need to have a reliable tool on which we can measure whether or not the building stock is moving forward and increasing its energy performance and reducing its energy demand over time. And you'll have guessed it, sustainability issues around carbon in the operational phase and carbon in the construction phase could also be considered. So there's a great deal of potential for this instrument, and I'm looking forward to hearing how the 4 projects in today's group are addressing these potentials and opening the way towards how we can practically achieve them. But to get there, there are issues that need to be addressed. And among those are the reliability and readability of energy performance certificates, or whatever they evolve to become. And what I mean here is we need to be sure that the methodologies behind a certificate are reliable and trustworthy, and that they deliver useful information to the building owner. Secondly, the way that information is graphically presented must be readable for the owner and therefore usable by the owner. And that leads me to market acceptability. To date, we've only had the requirement for the certificate to be delivered to a new building owner or to a tenant, but without a statement of when, at what point. We would put forward the idea that it should be at the point of putting the property on the market, a bit like product regulations, where you can't put a product on the market without certain criteria being fulfilled. And why not have the EPC before properties go on the market? There needs to be, I've spoken enough about that already, the usefulness in real projects. But a final issue that is under-addressed by many member states is the creation of a database which gathers together the information from energy performance certificates into one place that becomes accessible to stakeholders. And so obviously there would need to be different levels of accessibility. The building owner ought to be able to access all the information freely. The contractor who will be asked to take on work should be able to see anonymized information in order to ensure that they can understand the starting point for the work that they're about to do. And policymakers need to have access to the information in order to create good policies moving forward. So what's the relationship between what I've now been speaking about and the renovation wave strategy of the European Union? Well, I hope the audience is aware that the objectives of the renovation wave strategy are to at least double energy renovation rates between now and 2030. We would like to see it being tripled. Its objective is to increase the ambition of renovations and therefore actually save energy, not just improve in performance, but save energy to reduce the demand from the building stock. As a result, because so much of the energy used to operate our buildings is fossil-based, it will then reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But another key element that I've not addressed in this keynote is an objective to alleviate energy poverty. And energy poverty is a real plague across Europe, with around 50 million persons at risk of energy poverty at any one time. And alleviating the suffering that occurs in those households is a rightful and a good objective of the renovation wave strategy. We also see that we can create jobs and aid economic recovery, such an important thing in these soon we hope to be post-COVID pandemic times. We definitely have a large economic recovery to undertake, and moving forward, the renovation wave strategy should help to absorb a high number of workers from hospitality and tourism who may take many years to get back to their original levels of activity. And the renovation wave strategy is looking to undertake legislative reviews, including the one that I discussed earlier, the Buildings Directive. So in this context of the renovation wave strategy, the question is, can energy performance certificates help in achieving these objectives? And I think the answer is yes, but. And the but relates to the need to revise the framework to help the market take up more the concept behind energy performance certificates and to make them more useful moving forward. And that time is now, because the Buildings Directive, where the certificate is included, is now under revision. And we just came out of a workshop this morning on the issues around the revision of the directive. We were touching on digitalization this morning, but we have already had a workshop on the EPC. So what are the ideas I think could help in the revision that would allow for the renovation wave strategy to be boosted? and to help make it a success. Well, maybe the first is to say that the rule around when an energy performance certificate is issued should be modified so that it is required after every renovation project where energy issues, no matter how ambitious, so a few percent to dozens of percent, are result from the works. This means that every time a building is renovated, even though the owner doesn't change, then you get a new EPC issued. However, that, from my perspective, should be just one aspect of a broader requirement, which is that by a set date in the future, and I would suggest 2030, which is the horizon of the renovation wave strategy, all buildings across Europe should by that date have an EPC issued. And I don't see why this isn't feasible to do, because buildings, in a study undertaken for the European Commission by Guidehouse discovered that 9% of buildings are visited at least once per year for some kind of renovation works or replacement of equipment works. Why is it not possible that at such a visit, an EPC is issued if one doesn't exist for that building? And just doing the simple maths, we've 10 years, 9% per year, 90% of buildings should be touched. So I know that's simplistic, but we need to make a start. Then feeding that information that's gathered into national databases that are accessible to stakeholders is, as I said earlier, important, but those national databases should then be aggregated to become the feedstock for the European Building Stock Observatory, so that at EU level, we have a better monitoring tool to help understand whether the renovation wave strategy objectives are being achieved. And if we don't have the information, we haven't measured it, then we can't succeed in assessing whether or not we're getting where we should be getting. Another aspect in the Buildings Directive is the long-term renovation strategies, a new approach that was reinforced back in 2018, where all member states have to set out a plan for how they will transform the building stock in their country to be highly energy efficient and decarbonized by 2050. Well, having the right information flowing from EPC inspections and EPC certificates should help to, as benchmarks, or to allow for benchmarks to be set out in a strategy to be verified against real data. And EPC data should really help for benchmarking progress going forward towards that long-term goal. And I've already spoken about the link to Building Renovation Passport and digital logbooks. So our own position is that I think I've given plenty of hints about our position, but we are very pleased that in this current tranche of H2020 funding, a high number of projects looking at the energy performance certificates and how they can contribute, as I've tried to describe in this keynote, are underway. And we hope that coming out of these works, we will see that between the revision and the outputs from the projects, more convergence of methodologies across Europe will take place, leading to more comparability between energy performance certificates and the energy performance of buildings across boundaries. And we hope that the impact that this can have in the market will lead to more trained certifiers, persons with higher level of skill who will physically visit each building a certificate is issued to, in order to give tailored advice and information about what that particular building can do moving forward. So we are pleased to be here today. I hope I've adequately set the scene, and I look forward very much to the discussion. The last two slides in my presentation, when we get them, just allows you to know who we are, and I'm not going to talk to those now. So back to Julia. or over to my colleague, Eva. I'm not sure which way we're going to go.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone hears me well and can see me as well. So, well, thank you so much, Adrian, for giving me the floor for this really insightful presentation. And again, thanks for the organizer for having me as the moderator of this timely panel discussion. Well, I believe, Adrian, you made it really clear that today's panel discussion is really timely, as you know, it is important to seize the ongoing revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, because the ongoing revision, beyond keeping us, busy, it presents many opportunities to improve the role of energy performance certificates in being an enabler of more and better quality energy renovations across the European Union. If I may echo one of the main points that you just brought up, just to let's say, warm up the panel discussion and our panelists that I will introduce again in a moment. The main headlines coming from the PBD revision, and then the role of the EPCs, we see an increasing appetite for improving the current framework by ensuring more convergence, comparability, and of course coverage. That will be, of course, pivotal for the introduction of regulatory measures, as you rightly mentioned, are the minimum energy performance standards and their link, for example, to an embedded framework made of financing and technical assistance. But of course, during this upcoming panel discussion, we'll be discussing over the improvement of the data stemming from the recommendation from the EPCs themselves, that might go, beyond. They should account beyond the classic energy factors, so as to include the multiple benefits of energy renovation, so the broader aspects, and then of course the link to the integration of digital features, as it was rightly pointed out, the links with the digital building logbooks, the building renovation passport, SRI, and so on. So without any further ado, I'm really happy to be here today with 4 panelists representing 4 ongoing Horizon 2020 innovation actions on the topic of next generation EPCs. So welcome again to Maria Fernandez Boneta, representing Ipanacea, Apostolos Tsolakis from D-Square EPC, Rofai Delarek from EPC Recast, and Michał Pomianowski representing EDICE. So just for an icebreaker question, I see that all the panelists are turning on their camera, which is great. Hello all.
Hello.
So as really first question, I would like to ask you, so as it would be really great that if you could, introduce the main aim and objectives of your project, also having in mind how do your project and your project activities actually contribute to the above mentioned priorities that we've been discussing so far, which are strengthening the information of EPCs, improving their quality and coverage, and so on. So I would like to give the floor to Maria first, and then I would just proceed to Apostolos, and then Rofaida, and then again Michał at the end. So Maria, the floor is yours.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, really well.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Eva, for this introduction and give me the floor. So the main goal of the Ipanacea project is to overcome the current EPC's challenges, as you mentioned, for instance, the gap between calculated and actual consumption patterns, the lack of accuracy, lack of building users' engagement, and the lack of convergence across the European Union. With this objective, Ipanacea develops an innovative, holistic, and flexible methodology for energy performance assessment and certification for buildings. The Ipanacea methodology will cover relevant technical building innovations and will be integrated on an online platform, so-called the SEPAP, Smart Energy Performance Assessment Platform. Ipanacea develops innovation based mainly on 3 pillars. The pillar 1 is related to next generation of features, related to input data, covering, for instance, improved consideration of user behavior and occupant patterns, inclusion of smart and novel technologies, such as on-site production of renewable energy and advanced energy management systems, and the use of building monitoring data to increase accuracy. The pillar 2 is based on the next generation of outcomes that include, among others, new indicators useful for the development of policies that allow the energy transition and the decarbonization target by 2050. This pillar includes, for example, new global and partial indicators, better understandable by end users, a recommendation based on user behavior, tailor recommendations based on cost-optimal solution for deep renovation of buildings, and double-oriented information included in the EPC. On one side, focus on administration needs based on standardized operational conditions, and on the other side, focus on building users' needs based on actual use of the building. Last but not least, pillar 3 covers next generation of tools because within that next generation of EPCs needs a next generation of web-based tools and their innovative capabilities. In this case, the whole Panacea methodology, based on 3 different energy assessment methods and its decision matrix for the selection of the most suitable one for each assessment object, will be integrated on the CEPAP. The CEPAP will integrate inverse modeling and automated calibration procedures for dynamic building energy simulations, obtaining very accurate models, but reducing at the same time the computational costs and improving the cost effectiveness of the whole process. In order to validate and disseminate the Panacea methodology, we have developed a network mainly comprises of 3 aspects. We are managing 5 regional exploitation boards covering the whole European Union through 5 geographical regions comprising European policymakers, certification bodies, consumer associations, professional associations, and so on. We are conducting also 15 workshops during the project lifetime, 3 per pilot country, focus on integration of end users' perceptions, needs, and feedback. And we are going to validate the methodology through 15 case studies, 3 per pilot country, that is to say in Austria, Belgium, Greece, Spain, and Finland. And to meet the project objective and ensure the quality and impact, as well as the reliability, user-friendliness, and cost-effectiveness of the methodology, we have built a triple feedback loop in order to provide input and support to the Panacea methodology development. Each of these 3 feedback loops will allow to support a specific aspect of the methodology. Workshops regarding final user needs and perceptions, support in terms of user-friendliness, clarity of information provided, enhanced user awareness of energy efficiency, and occupant behavior patterns. The activities in the context of the 5 regional exploitation boards will support in global aspect related to overall targets of the European Union, and the testing and demonstration board through the assessment of the case studies in the 5 pilot countries will validate the methodology from a technical perspective in terms of accuracy and cost effectiveness of the methodology. So this is all from my side. Thank you.
That is great. Thank you so much, Maria. Now I would like to move on to Apostolos. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva, and thank you for the opportunity in participating in this panel for the Build Up portal. I will briefly present some of the key aspects from D-Square EPC project as CERT representative, which is the project coordinator. The D-Square EPC main objective and scope is to introduce and establish the concept of next generation dynamic energy performance certificates towards empowering the regular and dynamic energy classification of buildings, and of course allowing for an EU-wide deployment in general. In order to achieve that and describing and following a bottom-up approach, we start with great emphasis on the data and the reliability and credibility of the information provided for the EPC assessment process. Either for static information, we envision to incorporate building information modeling technologies, as well as secure and verified operational data from the buildings following a new IoT ecosystem, which both of them combined will deliver a digital twin, building digital twin, which will support all the processes and all the aspects that have to do with dynamic energy performance certificates. to enrich even more the process, and for both giving more value to the certificate, but also addressing the problem of end user understanding, raising awareness, as well as informing the end user with a lot more aspects that have to do with the energy performance. We also introduce a lot of novel indicators, starting with the newly presented smart readiness indicators, as well as information that has to do with comfort levels and well-being, additional energy performance information, as well as life cycle assessment and life cycle costs, and of course other financial indicators that we help to give value to the certificate as a whole. So by incorporating all of that information, we envision to not only give more value to the outcome of the performance certificate, so both in terms of use, either for renovation or for other aspects, but also to facilitate end users to understand the scope of the certificate, as well as to use it and work towards acquiring one without being a mandatory obligation from the member state regulation. On top of that, our project envisions to give policy related tools with the incorporation of GIS technologies. So we want to give the capability of district and neighborhood or regional leveraging of the information provided by VCs, so that we can evaluate the energy poverty of a region, as well as other statistics, enabling and facilitating or even accelerating policies in regards to the energy performance of the buildings. As we focus to present a well-formulated methodology for both asset and operational rating, we give a lot of attention to the standards that are behind these methodologies. So we envision to follow and to present a European-based approach for both asset but also operational rating, which does not exist at this point, and introduce ways that extend current standardized methodologies towards delivering an approach that can incorporate the D-square EPC vision. Finally, we provide also some added value services like polluter pays for active end user engagement, but also we introduce novel digital tools like AI-driven recommendations for giving extra value to the certificate by themselves. Of course, and since we will present all of these as a web platform that will give access to various stakeholders, starting from the engineers, but also the end users, policymakers, and other stakeholders, we envision to also provide links with EU schemes like digital passports, renovation roadmaps, building logbooks, and other such tools, so that we can successfully link the actual information from the building to the various stakeholders and the databases that are currently being formed. We will deliver the framework that will be implemented through D-square EPCs to 6 different buildings that cover a highly diverse portfolio, from production lines to residential buildings and even a tertiary case scenario, so that we can cover as much as we can within the 3 years of the project duration. And that sums up a little bit about our project. And back to you, Ella.
Thank you so much, Apostle. That was a really comprehensive presentation. Thanks a lot. I would like to now move on Rofaida, please, from EPC Recast. The floor is yours.
For this opportunity to present EPC Recast project that starts on the beginning, on the end of the last year. So EPC Recast is focused on residential buildings. Of course, for EPCs, more especially existing ones. So it will set a well-structured process and a digital toolbox supporting the development and implementation and validation of a new generation of energy performance assessment and energy performance certification. So for this, we are addressing 3 target groups to improve the quality and reliability of EPCs. The first target group is the EPC assessors. So the idea is to facilitate and improve working practices of assessors This is very important because the reliability of EPC depends on these working assessors. The second target group is the building owners. The idea is to tailor innovation recommendation and especially to highlight benefits of deep innovation apart of energy performance. According to user-centric design, the user is central in EPC RECAST project. So here there are key performance indicators, EPC RECAST template, EPC RECAST roadmap, and building innovation passport, for example. And the third target group is public authorities to allow verification of the reliability of EPCs. We are working to develop a kind of report that could be an index of EPC and that could contain some information and some additional indicators and that allow to verify the reliability of EPC. So the main action and output of this EPC RECAST is an automated data collection and enrichment for EP assessment on site. For example, the scan and public databases, the use of public databases, the quality procedure and the consistency checks linked with ISO standards, and the self-checking of inputs data using expert rules, expert values, data consistency using data consistency and cross-link tests, the use of measured energy consumption and deployment of smart meters to make possible the model calibration and verification when we use asset rating, for example, and also to make possible to have operational rating indicators. And information sharing, common language, and data interoperability for when we work on digital tools, lookbooks, and building innovation passports. And finally, the final action we support is to co-design of the certificate with owners and assessors to be sure that the indicators are useful and to be sure that no energy benefits innovation roadmap is included. So we can underline our more important keywords: data collection, quality checks, innovation roadmap, no energy benefits. All this process will be tested according pilot project. Over 150 dwellings in 6 countries will be implemented with this process. So this is a very short description of the project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rafaida. Well, I mean, short but straight to the point, and I'm sure that in the second, round of question, we'll actually touch upon a bit better on the angle related to building owners and the EPC assessors and so on. So I would like to now move to Miao representing EuroACE. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Well, EuroACE project is addressing the challenge of reliable assessment of buildings, and among the objectives that we have planned for the project, we have the development of the methodology for dynamic certification of buildings that would be based on openly available resources and tools. The dynamic certification methodology is foreseen to be based both by dynamic modeling, so transferring the compliance calculation from steady state into a dynamic environment, but as well by using the feasible monitoring approach. So this is 2 pillars: reliable simulations that are more detailed than the ones that are used at present, and feasible monitoring. The project also aims at developing the integration framework in order to facilitate the process. So the complexity of working with dynamic models is much more significant than when working with static models. This requires development of and identification of bridging agents in order to simply make the process feasible and possible in the real world. So here we work with information model and as well repository solution for all of the results and inputs. The third objective is to provide the user with the accurate and clear feedback, increasing his/her awareness of the building operation, and as well providing the information at the right time. At the right time, yes. So that there is a relation between the building operation and the user behavior or energy manager awareness of the operation of the building. Here, the issue is about the communicating the really key performance indicators to identified end users, and here it's also a challenge because, again, by moving the calculations and identification of the building from steady state case to dynamic, we begin to have many more results to communicate. So this is one of the challenges here, to communicate the necessary information and as well with the necessary frequency. The third or the fourth objective is focused on the operational savings. Since we are moving the calculations and monitoring into dynamic environment, we can focus more on operational savings of the building. So and by that provide the information in order to assess the building based on the key performance indicators, in order to decrease the actual energy use of the building, and by that as well identify the performance gap. So the performance gap between what would we expect from the building in theory under standard boundary condition and under standard use, and with respect to what is actual energy use of the building. And the last objective is to actually test the methodology, so the methodology application in the demonstration buildings. So we have number of buildings where the methodology will be applied and tested in order to illustrate the possibilities, but as well the challenges and limits. So that is all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michał. Also, another really interesting first presentation of the project. So we have now reached a moment that we know more on each project that our panelists are representing today during this panel discussion. Now, well, I would like to move on to a bit more detailed question that should actually touch upon elements that should, of course, let's say, put these elements into a broader perspective, which is more of a perspective of an ongoing, legislative revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. So I would like to start by addressing the first question to our panelist, Maria, representing EPANASEA. So we know so far that EPANASEA is really interested in web-based tools, and the importance of store real-time energy performance of buildings. And I think, Maria, you are the best person now to tell us a bit more on how can we ensure actually to create mutually reinforcing links among energy performance certificates, building renovation passports, digital building logbooks, and smart readiness indicator. Also, having in mind this, I'm actually curious to know specifically, as you can see in the slide, if you see a possible mandatory requirements of introducing digital building logbooks as a way to, let's say, create a unique building data gateway that could finally be a starting point to address, the information gap. So please, Maria, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eva, for the question, and thank you for giving me the floor. So I'm going to try to answer the question as best as possible. Indeed, EPANACEA project explores the link between all these instruments and their possible synergies. Specifically, EPANACEA's methodology ensures the reliability of EPCs because based in building modeling on calibration and inverse modeling techniques, accurate models of buildings can be developed representing actual building performance according to the real use and climate conditions, beyond the current calculation-based methodologies. Based on monitoring data and calibrated models, EPANACEA project integrates tailored recommendations and renovation roadmaps based on actual energy use and global costs according to the cost-optimal methodology. So this represents a strong link to the building renovation passports. Regarding the Smart Readiness Indicator instrument, we have envisioned this issue from two different perspectives within the EPANACEA project. On one hand, through the exploration of possible links between current EPCs schemes across the European Union and the SRI. Indeed, a specific deliverable regarding this issue will be available by the end of this month. And the second perspective, we have developed an inventory of smart and novel technologies and its prioritization, such as on-site renewable generation, building automation and control systems, and so on, with the objective of taking their impact on energy savings into account within the energy assessment methodology. In this way, it could contribute to future developments regarding the SRI, as well as to build the link between next generation of EPCs and the SRI. For instance, contributing to the definition of the weighting factors according to climate zone and building use required at member state level for the current SRI methodology. Besides, the digitalization of information through the use of common databases easily accessible through web platforms is also part of the EPANACEA project. The SEPAP, the Smart Energy Performance Assessment Platform, under development in the EPANACEA project, will integrate all energy-related data of the building assessed. For instance, measured data, inventory of equipment, schedules, user preferences, energy use disaggregation, recommendations for energy conservation measures, overall energy indicators and partial indicators, and of course, additional indicators like the SRI. So, through the definition of a common data format for information exchange, the SEPAP could be easily linked to building logbooks, or indeed become one of them with a little additional development. So, regarding your last question, yes, in my opinion, the use of digital logbooks as mandatory could improve the information gap on the side of consumers, but we have to be careful because it is not only an issue of accessible information for end users, it is also related to the quality and clarity of the information provided. This is something we are also working on within EPANACEA through the 15 workshops I mentioned previously, 3 per pilot country, focus on user perceptions, with participants from end user sectors and other stakeholders in order to test the acceptance and user friendliness of the results provided by EPANACEA's methodology. So yeah, thank you. This is my point of view regarding this question.
That's great, Maria. Thank you so much. Actually, you create a really good segue for the next question that we have in the slide deck, which is I hope this works, which is actually directed to Apostolos, and indeed, I mean, it's a really good link with the reliability of data, and and I wonder, I mean, when I was listening to your presentation, Apostolos, so I'm really interested in the adjective dynamic that is part of the D2 Square EPC project. So we know that the information, of course, is at the core of any decision-making process that could be for building owners and occupants, or even a policymaker at times. So, so I wanted to ask you, what do you see, like, which do you see a role for building information modeling to help, you know, establishing this dynamic national level EPC database that could at the same time help, you know, public bodies, public authorities to introduce and implement new regulatory measures, such as, for example, minimum energy performance standards that could spur, of course, renovation rates and depth of renovation works for buildings. Apostolos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva. And indeed, it's a very interesting topic following the previous comments. In D2 EPC, we believe that building information modeling is one of the core components and one of the core technologies for delivering what we have in our minds. Because as we are moving to the digital era that we envision for the entire of Europe and the construction sector in particular, such tools can actually speed up the process, not only for assess the energy performance of the building, but also come back and validate the result, check if information is correct, and therefore provide for means for validating the quality of the information provided. On top of that, as we see that BIM covers more and more ground in the recent years, the information required for the assessment of the energy performance of the building, especially for the asset rating, already exists in a very high percentage in such models. And thus it's possible to have a very cost-effective solution for accelerating the process and facilitating the flow of such schemes, making it a lot easier for actual people to go there and have an EPC for their buildings. It's also very important to highlight the fact that although currently BIM is mostly compared with the design phase of the building, that's not the case. It can support the construction phase, the operational phase, as well as the entire life cycle of the building, which allows for information as the building develops, either through renovation or other changings, to accurately depict the changes to this digital representation, making it easier to follow up the transition of the building over time, and as well as to provide regular performance assessment without requiring very complex and time-consuming audits, which in some cases may not even reveal the full aspects of the buildings, especially in terms of construction materials. Therefore, building information modeling and beyond that, digital twins, when we are also providing for information, real-time information from the building, operational data, either from energy measurements or even from other environmental aspects, perhaps are the key for actually deliver more frequent, more reliable and high quality energy performance certificates, not only for the end users and the engineers that are involved in the process, but mainly for the public bodies and the policy making to actually assess the details of the process, because they have higher granularity of the information, easier access, and of course always the capability to go back and compare the results with the actual information of the buildings. So we expect that BIM is going to be a key role, to host a key role for the performance assessment in general, and we envision to provide for these through justified and proof-based findings through the project.
That's great. Really interesting, Apostolos. Thank you so much. Now I would like to move on to the next speaker, the panelist. Sorry. who is Rafaida. And as I actually linked before from your presentation, so the angle that deals, with the, supporting the decision-making process of, for example, building owners and occupants, I would like to focus on the recommendations of the EPCs, so the quality of those, and then how they can trigger higher quality energy renovations, as we are in a moment where we are debating how to ensure that we spur not only rates but also depth of energy renovations. So how, in your view, the quality of recommendation can trigger actions of building owners and occupants in relation to, for example, the building renovation passport, digital building logbooks, SRI, and so on, to reach actual NZEB levels for existing buildings? And then, do you see that more meaningful recommendations can help actually trigger deep energy renovation? Please go ahead, if the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva. In these questions, I hear one word, which is a recommendation. I think it's very important. And the recommendation in the EPC are effective and trigger the owner's desire and the owner's decision making only if they are strong adequation with the information displayed on the EPC. It is a very important point, so it is therefore very important to properly define key performance indicators and relevant additional information that should be easily appropriated by owners. This is a very important point, and in EPC recast, we work on these two aspects according a user-centric approach, because the user is central in these questions. So we would like to develop a specific attention to frame an EPC recast certificate template with a set of indicators, additional information, recommendation, and additional parts maybe, and to develop a methodology for recommendation. So we plan for that action in 3 phases. The first important phase is expectation from end users. It will be shared through interviews, questionnaires, and experience made. The second action in the second phase is a mock-up to validate the future interfaces with end users. And finally, the third phase is prototyping of the device and user testing. We will do that according to our pilot projects. So there are these 3 actions, and we start now for the first one, of course. And about the information, because we should put some a first draft of this EPC template. So we think about additional information to make EPC more efficient and understandable for users. So in our point of view, there are several additional information, and the most important one is the quality of indoor environment. This quality of indoor environment integrates 4 major components. The thermal environment, which include thermal comfort in summer, in winter, and maybe other thermal environment components. Acoustic environment, indoor air quality for health, and luminous or visual environment. So, of course, these indicators are not easy to display on an EPC, but the quality level of each of the components will be represented by a color from green, high quality, to red for very low quality. This is very important to secure simple communication with the end users. We have also other additional information what we would like to address in the EPC recast project. There are financial valuation and also smart readiness indicators. We talk about, and the other speakers talk about these smart readiness indicators, And in EPC Recast, we will use what was done in a previous project, which is the Ardennes project, because all these indicators have been worked on this European funded project, Ardennes. And the idea is to start with that and to focus our effort to adapt these indicators for residential buildings within EPC Recast project. For example, for smart readiness indicator, we think that we have to really make some easier understanding for that, with very simple words to explain exactly what is these indicators. There are also important information that should support the owner's understanding. For example, information on the performance of the building envelope. It is very important because sometimes the owner that not understand what is for example, energy performance, primary energy consumption. So he needs to have more information that is more understandable. And for envelope, for example, it could be done on a qualitative way on the level of each component insulation, or for example, using a diagram that points the different heat losses, or giving a whole indicator for envelope. And the same thing for the information about equipment. For example, the efficiency of equipment in a very easy words for the owners, and in link also maybe with the expected lifetime of the equipment. So this is about the additional information and the importance to make this information easier for the owners. And if we go now to the recommendation part, our approach is to insert recommendation to present them as a retrofit roadmap, potentially successful over time. Roadmap because it is very important. And we aim a simplified, easy to understand renovation roadmap backwards from near zero energy performance building. Near zero energy performance is the higher class of the label of the certificate, and the EPC is one of this target to achieve the NZEB level could be done on several steps or on one steps, and both options being consistently presented to the owner to avoid the lock-in effect. So to make this recommendation more effective and more investable, they must be supported by quantitative and qualitative assessment of the benefits they can generate on the various aspects. For example, we can have general or tailored information to support this recommendation about, for example, the potential of overall improvement of the building after renovation, deep renovation. For example, no more sensation of cold walls, improvement of indoor quality through a better ventilation system, etc. Also, for example, about the proper using of the energy consumption equipment, about available regional or national subsidies and how to get more information and advice to fund a renovation project. We think also about, for example, when the label in the EPC is an asset rating based on calculation assessment, we can also give more information about real energy consumption and the link with this asset rating, for example. And I can now speak about the building innovation passport. So we think important to establish the link with the recommendation and innovation. We are currently we which could be the most suitable starting point for from existing experiences and initiatives for the development of this building renovation passport for residential buildings, and to focus on more the renovation roadmap definition that could be also in the building renovation passport. So the final aim will be the development of a user-friendly tool which allows the building owners to plan long-term strategies for the renovation of their buildings following ambitious energy performance, no requirement towards near zero energy performance buildings objectives. And about the logbooks, we really just start discussing, and we do not have yet our idea are not now really established about this logbook, because we think that there is a big difference between non-residential buildings and residential buildings, and how to identify the level of structuration of a logbook that could be easy to set up for residential buildings, because it is very specific in residential buildings. There are, of course, many levels on how to structure logbooks and how to make links with the other information. But we can start with the first level. The first level is just to put for example, documentation of the building, some blueprint of the building, technical documentations, previous EPCs, and so on. So I think that we can have also some feedback from the other projects about that and how to adapt it for our project. So it's what I can say today about recommendation, additional information, building renovation passports, and lookbook. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rafaela. That was really a really good and comprehensive question. So thanks a lot on all the points. I would like now to move on to Miao, which is the last slide on my short slide deck. I'm sorry, I hope this works. Yes. So while listening to you, Miao, and actually doing myself some reading on EDICE, I was pretty impressed by the level of adaptability of the EPC labeling methodology that actually the project is working on. And now this could be either a standalone EPC labeling methodology, or actually complementary itself with the current EPC scheme at place. So in light of this, let's say, replicability potential, I was wondering, how do you see this methodology actually supporting the achievement of national level NZEB standard for existing buildings? Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Well, yes, it is quite ambitious, I would say, what we have in front of us in this project. About the replicability, or about actually this solution that we propose being parallel to current EPC. Yes, it is true. We from the beginning, or actually while doing the brainstorming about the project, we have decided that it should be proposed as a parallel and not it's complementary, but not contradicting or anyhow competitive scheme to current EPC. We also foresee that it would be most replicable or applicable as well to professional building owners at the beginning. So those who have the expertise, knows what they want, as well have a staff that knows how to read the results and how to use them. So we expect that this would be a professional building owners such as building associations or pension funds that administrate rather large portfolio of buildings. So this is the replicability. So at the early stage, we foresee this scheme would be most applicable for these partners and rather less for the individual building owners. Yes. How this methodology? Yes. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
I had a little delay. I'm really sorry. Go ahead, Miao.
Yes. So how the methodology supports the achievement of national level NZEP standard of existing buildings? This is the second question. Well, first of all, the NZEP standards are different in different countries. So this is, of course, individual per country. As such, we are more focusing on actual energy use of the building and minimizing the performance gap than obtaining NZEP. Because NZEP still at the moment it can be calculated. Yes, of course, we can do the calculation. We can say the building is NZEP, but in actual performance, it's very often far away from being NZEP. And actually, the performance gap of the buildings that are rated highest is the largest comparing to their actual energy use. So here we are addressing this performance gap that is created by, for example, one of the reasons is the rebound effect. Simply after energy renovating the building, the users' behavior changes, the temperatures set points changes in the building. People think they can afford more comfort, and they begin to less focus on energy saving. So we focus on energy actual energy use in the building and minimization of the performance gap. And another thing actually that I wanted to say is not about the EDIs, but it's about just NZEP levels. So nearly zero energy buildings are described slightly different in different countries. Simply it's fair because simply boundary conditions are different, history is different, primary energy factors are different in different countries. So all of this makes sense that we have different levels of NZEP. I can speak for the Danish case because we work mostly with the Danish buildings, but all of the numbers that I come to over the last years and myself are calculating are telling us that NZEP levels at the moment have no economical feasibility. It's a little bit less than NZEP level that we can still say is economically wise renovation level. If we want to reach really the NZEP level, so this last 15–20% more to reach NZEP, we result in much worse net present value or similar result that makes the solution much more expensive for the end users. So the question is the NZEP level still economically feasible in some of the countries, and also with respect to a reference case buildings that we work with? We cannot expect that we move the building that consumes 150 kilowatt hours per square meter per year to 25 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. That would be the goal for Denmark, and do it economically feasible. We can expect maybe 40–50 kilowatt hours, and we still have to make sure that this is the real actual consumption and not the calculated consumption. So this is just my input to the discussion here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Miao, for this answer to this question. So now, since we have been hearing from our panelists and for a first round of question and then a more detailed one, I would like to remind the audience to share with us, moderator and panelists, the questions that they might have. And then so we can actually have this last 12 minutes for a lively exchange. So as I do not see any questions coming on the chat so far, I might benefit of the moderator role today here with you, and I hope I can actually make a question that could be in a way answer to all of you. So as an energy consumer myself, I'm really interested in knowing like how to make the data coming from the EPC as understandable as possible, because we all know that energy consumers have a different understanding of how their buildings are working in terms of energy and in their environmental quality and so on. So I would like to ask you how, like from a, let's say, more marketing perspective, how do we ensure that the data is still relevant? I mean, we have actually already heard from Rafaida. I wanted, so if she would like to build on this point a bit more, but I would like also to learn more from the other projects on this particular aspect. So whoever would like to take the floor, please, this is the right time to do so. Yes, please, Maria,
Yes.
go ahead.
It's the same as you want. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, it's a key question, no? It's a key question how to provide information with clarity and user friendliness enough to final consumers understand, and this information is really useful for them. Our approach at the moment is the double-oriented information in the EPC. No, one side for the administration, for the policymakers, because they still need some information currently included in the current EPC's report, no? Because they need information to compare the building stock. So we need also indicators based on standardized operational conditions. But it's true that some indicators, the end users, the consumers, don't understand non-primary, non-renewable primary energy consumption. It's an indicator is not understandable for consumers, and they don't understand the standardized operational conditions, no, with a climate, standardized use by type of building. So we also need information end users oriented, based on actual consumption data, based on monitoring data, with a real actual disaggregation of energy use per energy service. Also, we need personal indicators with a graphical representation that oriented consumers on what is best and what is worse in their buildings. For example, regarding the heat transfer coefficients of the envelope, of the windows, energy efficiency performance of the HVAC systems, or the rate of renewable energy generate and consume in their buildings. So yeah, our approach is that, a double-oriented information with different type of data and different graphical representation of the data and results.
Thank you so much, Maria. Who would like next to take the floor? I could not remember who was about to. Oh, I see, Rafaida, maybe you would like to take the floor. Yes.
To give more information and more details on this answer that Maria gives, because I think that especially for residential buildings and for individual houses, it is very important to put on the EPC some diagrams with very understandable words that are, for example, everyone understand what is insulation, but no high number of people understand what is U value, for example. So we can move to the qualitative indicators by some diagrams. And what is, I think, very important that we also had the experience in other projects is to give in the EPC maybe what is the strengths and what are the strengths of this building and what are the weaknesses. And with this information I think is very important, but because sometimes the owners don't really know about their buildings, and to point out the strengths and the weakness could help to understand the order information in the EPC, and to make a link between this information and the recommendation. I agree that when we use NZ a target for a recommendation, we are thinking on theoretical energy performance, because it is not the real energy consumption, for example. And it is very important that if we do that, for example, for the recommendation to have this target to NZ, we should have also some recommendation, some check by the assessor to verify that it is really possible to have this type of measures that will put the building in the high level performance. So it is very simple, but to work to achieve that is very hard. That means we have to work on the rules and a number of tools to the assessors to make it possible for him to verify, first of all, to make the recommendation, and then to verify if it is possible for this building to really achieve these recommendations.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rafaida, for this answer as well. So in the meantime, I see that we are running slightly out of time, but I would like to take this question because I see that it's actually repeating from the audience, which is an important point to bring up. So we have heard that the EPC role should be, of course, extend. I mean, you are working, guys, on extending the scope of the EPC. So the audience is wondering, how can we ensure that actually member states adopt any additional guidelines on EPC implementation, seeing that at the moment there is a pretty, let's say, non-homogeneous way of implementing EPCs in various EU countries. Perhaps this is a question that could be addressed to Michał and Apostolos that haven't had the chance so far to input on this chat. Questions for the audience?
If I could go first?
Please.
Well, I think this is quite an interesting question, and it comes at the right time, since we are, as presented earlier, we are during the consultation for the revision of the directive. So we expect that the outcomes from our projects, as well as other activities, other related activities, will provide for information in order to guide and drive the changes that are required for updating the regulation from the Commission. So as it usually goes, when the directive is the new directive is presented, then every member state should in line and present new measures so that national policies are in line with the European policy. However, since this is a very big challenge, if you like, both in our project and other projects, what we are trying to deal with is how can we provide a methodology based on current standards, of course, that can be deployed in all member states, so that the outcome, the label, if you like, could be comparable between member states and buildings from different countries, of course taking into consideration the geolocation as well as other parameters that are regional based. So what we are trying to do is to present for guidelines and recommendations that will facilitate or aid policymaking towards defining such measures. If we provide for methodologies, and this is our aim, that can be replicated across all member states, that will also make it easier to be adopted by member states, because everywhere it will be the same methodology, the same standardized approach in order to present for EPCs. And of course, different coefficients, different factors, different climate data are required, but the methodology could be the same.
Yes. I can just follow on Apostolos because we have the same experience here. So the methodology that is developed is one, and we are at the level where we create recommendation, and we are in a way identifying what is possible here when transferring the static to calculations to dynamic one. We are not yet there at saying this is the only way, this is the only tool that you can use in all of the countries. Probably the tools will be different still in different countries, but they will have to comply with certain how to say it? They would have to have certain skills, or not the skills, but they would have to have certain qualities to comply with the methodology. And I totally understand the question, and I think it's a fair question. I also want to refer to something else, that many of the current tools and methods that are used for certification are relying on engine that is the compliance energy calculation tools, also given that is used when the building permit is issued in different countries. It's not the case for probably all of the countries, but for some of the member states it is. And in here we did a small test in one of the IEA annex projects, where we took some of the European countries, 6, 7, 8 countries, I don't remember, and we try to compare. We build a best case model, and we try to compare the results and to implement the same assumption in all of the simple compliance models, and it was very difficult. So at the moment it's difficult. I would expect if we go into more detailed models, it might be as well challenge, but at the moment we are identifying if it at all makes sense to go this direction. I would say this is the fair answer.
Yeah, indeed. So, well, thank you so much, actually, all of you, because indeed, I mean, I'm actually sad because we do not have enough time, because I would really keep on discussing with you these really important points and actually go into the details. So perhaps there will be more opportunities in the future to exchange on this. So thanks again to all of you panelists, and I hope that you liked this session, this panel discussion as much as I did, and also to our audience. Without any further ado, I would like now to pass the floor to the Build Up team for the conclusions of this session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva. Thank you all. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye.
Thank you.